Our product is entirely developed based on user feedback. Okay, do I know that one investment is better than the other one? I have absolutely no idea. Now, that does not mean that you trade it at the closing price. Don't get me started if you're an American with money in Switzerland. If any split data is wrong, everything goes exponentially wrong.
Hey, Piero, how are you?
I'm good. And
Hello.
you? Hi, how are you?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining today.
Nice background, Natalie.
Thank you.
Very, very fancy.
Yeah. Try to show my real background, so it'll be fancy then.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice. I like these teams' backgrounds. They kind of help you to set up everything. So it looks good. Perfect. Let me just give a bit of an intro of what we are going to do here today. So we'll ask you a bunch of questions about your experience with a startup and overall experience with EODHD so that other startups could listen to this and kind of pick up your knowledge on how to work with data and how to become successful as a startup. So any tips and tricks are appreciated. And if you don't want to answer anything, just let us know. It's completely fine.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. For starters, could you give a brief intro about your company? Who is it for and what do you do?
So Exirio is a wealth tracking app, an app that allows our users to track all their investments across asset classes, currencies, platforms, asset types, you name it. We don't call ourselves portfolio tracker because we don't just allow tracking of security portfolios, but wealth. So it could be properties, rare wine, watches, cars, land, whatever it may be, crypto. So it is an app that is intended to replace a spreadsheet, both David and myself being CEO and co-founder, alongside pretty much most of our friends that had a little bit of money to invest. We ended up, all of us, having monster spreadsheets that over time become completely impossible to understand for anyone but the author, and very time consuming to update, complex to build, and so forth. So we really thought there ought to be an app to do this, to essentially assist individual investors with their own wealth management. Generally, if all your assets are in the hands of an advisor, that's what he does for you. But if you manage your own money and there's an increasing number of self-directed investors, you need a tool that allows you to compare all your investments to understand, what you should be doing, to highlight areas of risk and exposure, and which can only be produced if you gather all your assets in the same place, and where you have a tool that allows you to generate all the necessary metrics for you to assess the health of your portfolios, of your investments, and in general of your retirement plans. So that's what Exirio does, and that's where it comes from. Unlike a bunch of competitor apps, we are not geography focused. We have users in about 150 different countries. It's pretty amazing to see the number of. This is kind of reflected by the number of currencies that we support. It's about 70. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could list. I don't think I can list more than 30 on the back of my head. I mean, in terms of currencies that exist, and we keep adding currencies when we got users that pop up and ask for a new currency, and it's great. Like, I never knew this one existed. Sorry, anyway, this is what Exirio does, and of course, in order to do that, we need connectivity. So, and we need data. Mm-hmm. So the data, in terms of what the investments are, either comes manually from the investor if they cannot or they do not want to connect to their institutions. Obviously, there's with users all over the world, it's virtually impossible to every single bank or broker there is out there. So we're bound to have users that don't find their own broker in the list of those that we connect. Or there are those that simply decide that they don't want to take that risk, which is perfectly fine. So the data on the investments come from either the connection or the investor. But then obviously we need valuation tools. So that's where you guys come into the picture, because we provide a valuation for the investments that are tracked. Well, a valuation when we can provide one. It's very easy when it comes to securities because there's an official closing price of a particular position. We do not valuation for private assets. But yeah, this kind of bridges me to how we work with you.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Actually, I feel like the best ideas, they come from your own experience. And considering the growth that you have with users from all over the world, that's amazing. So Good job with that. How many, do you have any specific features that your users love the most and that you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, there's the most distinctive features of Exirio are one, the currency flexibility, which I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's open a bracket on this. When you start building I'm not a tech person, but I've been in a tech startup for 5 years, so I've learned a few bits along the way.
Yeah.
But to set up the architecture of an app, or like Exirio, you need to decide day one whether you're going to be stuck with a certain number of currencies or you want to adopt earlier maximum currency flexibility. And this is the decision we chose at the very beginning, which required more work than if you otherwise offer just sterling, euro, dollar, and Swiss francs, for example. That allows us, but this has allowed us now, if you come up with a currency that we don't have, it will be fully available within 2 hours. It's very, very development work. Well, if you have decided up front not to have that degree of flexibility, it's a massive effort to add an additional currency. It means you need to be able to express everything in that currency, to allow the tracking of assets in that currency, to update all the metrics based on that currency. So all this back-end architecture is something we built since day one, and that allows us to add currencies very easily. And that's one of the features that really sets us apart and allows us to have users in Papua New Guinea, for example. Actually, this is going to bring me to how we ended up working with you. But that's one feature that really sets us apart. And the other one is the metrics. It's easy for me if I wanted to just give you a snapshot of your wealth. All I need to know, let's say, for example, that all your wealth is concentrated in 100 shares of Apple. All I need to know is 2 pieces of information: how many shares you have and what's the closing price of Apple. And then I can give you a value. A lot of apps do this, so you have got the current value daily or multiple times a day that is updated. What does this tell you about your investment? Pretty much nothing. Are you making money? Have you lost money? What's your rate of return? How have you doing? Your buying and selling at different points in times has been a good strategy or a bad strategy? What if you had just bought at the beginning and never traded in and out? So in order to do that, you need the entire history of your position. When you bought, dividends you received, stock splits, corporate actions. Now, it gets even funnier when you've got ETFs that are traded in one currency, but pay dividends in a different one, and have got the same ISIN code across exchanges for different currencies. So it all gets very complicated in a hurry. But it's the only way for an app to be able to give you really valuable information, not just the current value, but that's why, what's your IRR, which means I need to have all the cash flows in order to determine that. What's your TWR? What's your cash gain? What's your performance over the past 3 months, year to date, last 5 days, and so on and so forth. I'm not aware of any other app providing you with the MWR and TWR. Our closest competitors give you the current value and your total cash gain, which again, it's good to know. But if I know that I made 50,000 euros from my Apple position and 70,000 euros from my rental income of the property I own in Munich, for example, okay, do I know that one investment is better than the other one? I have absolutely no idea. How much I invested in each one of them, for how long I've held them. All that data is lost in just the current value and the total gain. So this is the second feature that really sets us apart. Actually, that brings me, if you let me continue, to how we ended up working with you.
Please.
We found, that was, I think, 2 years ago. It was in August. I actually remember specifically when it happened. David was on the 6 days off that he took in the past 5 years. It actually happened when he was not there. And a user requested that we added a Romanian leu. I don't know if you're aware of this currency. I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I replied, yes, of course. And then the day after, it was released in production. So the guy immediately had the Romanian leu, which obviously made us the only app 2 years ago, certainly, I don't know now, that would allow users in Romania to track in their own currency. Little did I know that this guy was an influencer in Romania. So about a week later, completely unsolicited, no paid promotion, none of that. This guy issues a video about Exirio in Romanian, saying how impressive it was, it was with the speed of execution. Obviously, there's like a 30-minute video in Romanian, so I don't know really what it says, but it puts on the screen the time it took for support to answer. Like I sent the email at 11:59, I got the reply at 12:06, these kind of things, which made us an overnight success in Romania. But there's a problem. There's a reality every time you add a currency is that you're bound to have a lot of Romanian investors invested in Romanian stocks. So, which means who is going to give me the prices of stocks on the Bucharest Stock Exchange? Because yeah, I can let you track assets in Romanian leu, but if I cannot give you the price of your stocks in Banca Transilvania, it doesn't really help you that much. So we started looking for who in the world was actually tracking and providing in their package Romanian stock prices. And you guys came up, and then we started working with you, and then we never had any reason to look for an alternative solution. If anything, we're increasing reasons not. So that's basically how we found you, because we were looking for Bucharest prices.
Wow, that's so cool. So have you managed to increase your user base in Romania? Is it like a significant part of your user base now, or no?
I mean, it's a significant. It's not the largest country by definition. I mean, the US is the largest country where we have users. But in terms of penetration, market penetration, certainly Romania is the country in which we are most successful. We've got a lot of users. I mean, our app is available in 6 languages, I believe. And we connect, obviously, how successful you are in a particular country depend on A, the currency, B, that you can track the prices of the local stock market, and C, that you can connect to institutions in that country. Because your average Romanian investor will bank with whatever broker, like, for example, Tradeville. Tradeville is a broker in, I don't know whether it's only Romania or somewhere else. I've never seen it on their website, but I know that it's a very popular broker in Romania, but pretty much only in Romania, which means we haven't been able to have any of our connection partners, because we don't connect directly to the institutions, to develop that connection, which means Romanian users, they still need to track whatever assets they had with Tradeville. They need to track them manually. So if we could connect all Romanian institutions, that would be, is the third element that makes the coverage of a country perfect. Now, we have that for example, in Spain, we've got that in France, we've got in the US, we've got the language, the currency, the exchange, the connectivity. So we're bound to be more, in absolute terms, successful in other countries. But certainly, on a relative basis, Romania keeps being very much crucial for us.
That's cool. I think there is a really good lesson for startups from that, is that when you actually provide very good customer service, as you mentioned, you help them to add a currency within hours. And they were so impressed that they made a video about it. And this was just word of mouth. So we kind of did not invest in special advertising. So just by providing a great service, you kind of get more clients and grow your user base. And yeah, that's amazing. I feel like EODHD also follows this strategy, because we have 24/7 support. And many of our users, they say that it's just amazing that you can get help anytime and you can get a reply very fast. And it's also not just some chatbot, but a real person helping you out. I think you're...
I totally agree with that. I have interacted with support not very often, because it's not me contacting you whenever a new stock, there's been a new IPO and you haven't added yet a particular share, or asking whether you can add something or not, or discussing whether the split data of a particular share are correct or not, which is always very challenging. I mean, because you guys make decisions based on publicly available information, and then we stumble upon very different publicly available information. So sometimes it's very hard to understand what really happened. So these are the times that we have been dealing with support, and I know by indirect experience that it's always been dealt within hours. So you send an email to you guys today, I know that I will get an answer certainly today, probably within an hour or two. That's generally been the case, or faster. Again, it's not my direct experience, but certainly I never heard anyone saying otherwise.
Thank you. Actually, I'm curious, was it like your strategic decision to start working originally worldwide, not in just your local markets, or was it just happening for you?
Well, you see, like, both David and myself are expats, have been expats all our lives. I spent time outside of my home country than in my home country. And generally, again, this is more intelligence that comes from David, because who really had the idea of this. I'm a co-founder. He's, let's say, the primary founder. Oh, maybe no, I'm not being fair to myself. We started together the day one, but he has background in both finance, tech, and working briefly for an advisory. He made the realization of how underbanked expats are. You're not the ideal client for any bank or broker. If you are from this country, live in another country, working and pay taxes in a third country, you are a compliance nightmare. The ideal broker of a German broker is a German citizen who never left Germany and who pays taxes in Germany. Same goes for a French broker, an Italian broker, a Spanish broker, an American broker. And don't get me started if you're an American with money in Switzerland, which I know you can no longer do. So expats really had that kind of issue, and they had that issue with the incumbent in wealth tracking that existed at the time, only allowed to track assets in dollar. And if you are an expat, you're bound to have accumulated large or small bank accounts, small investment, bits and bobs in a bunch of currencies. So, the idea of serving expats originally, and therefore the whole currency flexibility decisions day one, meant that by definition, then you don't focus on a country. You focus on particular places like, I don't know, Singapore, Dubai, New York, London, Paris. You don't focus on Romania. But then, that's what you start with, and then you start thinking that you get concentration with the currency flexibility. As a matter of fact, I'm speaking as anecdote, but what that word in terms of anecdotes, because I don't have hard data. But I think our currency flexibility has allowed us to have a much wider user base rather than a lot of users with assets in 5 currencies. Now, of course, that have assets in multiple currencies, but I would say that the vast majority would have either euro dollar or sterling if their home currency is different from that one, then their home currency. But it wouldn't have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. So, whether even though the initial thought was expat focused, then obviously you go where your users.
Yeah, that's true. It's a pretty limited audience, but it's good to have them as early adopters because it's a product kind of specialized for expats in that sense. And then, it just starts growing because as EODHD, we also have clients from all over the world, and we don't really focus on any specific markets. And that reflects our data coverage. So that's why we have over 60 exchanges available. And I agree, it kind of works differently in a different market. Somewhere conversions are higher, somewhere are lower, but still it gives you a more diversified audience in a sense. I feel like it's a pretty good strategy.
I wouldn't say it was built for expats. Just quite early on, we had a chat with a user in the US, very sophisticated user who absolutely loved the app. I don't think he had ever owned anything but US dollars. And I don't think he ever left the country. And he switched to Exirio from the incumbent, that app, which I'm not going to mention, which only allows tracking in US dollar. And that kind of woke us up. It's like, okay, we had this user in mind, not this user, we had the expat user in mind. But obviously, there's a completely opposite profile that has moved on to Exirio, the incumbent, which means obviously this is not kind of crafted specifically for expat. That doesn't quite help those that are not expats. If anything, the fact is that we assist a lot more non-expats than expats. It was just interpretation day one. We did, but unlike 4 of our key if not all of our key competitors, we did not start with a specific country in mind. I mean, there are some that are clearly countries like Wealthica is Canada, ShareSite is Australia, New Zealand, Finery is France, GetQueen is originally Germany. Then they expand. Everybody obviously has users all over the place, but there's an initial geographical focus very, very defined that actually we have not had.
Does it mean that you used user interviews to get some insights on how to move your product strategy?
I know. Our product is entirely developed based on user feedback. It doesn't matter what I say. Of course, the first version of it, the first UX, the first MVP was based on what David and I thought was necessary. But then we very methodologically track requests. And whenever we have wavelength to develop something new, we just look at this. It was like, this feature has been requested by 50 users. This has been requested by 2. I would rather do the one requested by 2 because it personally helps me more. But we go by what people ask. Thing is, appears in the app. So we release new versions in production every week or so with maybe just some tweaks that are not visible. There are some UX changes or new features or new things. And there's nothing that in any new version that has just come out of our imagination. It's entirely user. So we actively constantly seek user feedback, but I think everybody does that.
That's great. So amazing. Yeah, it's also a good lesson, I think, for other startups to follow user feedback. That will help you to develop your product, not just your imagination, as you said. It's great. Also, I wanted to talk about your second competitive advantage that you mentioned is calculating the metrics. And as you mentioned, here is where EOD helps you a lot. So where you rely on a lot of data, I think you mentioned splits, dividends. What other data feeds do you find useful to get this competitive advantage working?
Well, okay, so there's, how can I phrase this? So there's basic data and there's enhanced data, at least in my.
Yeah.
Basic data is what anyone can give you relatively easily. The difference is reliability, price, but pretty much everyone offers the kind of same thing, right? Which is, your closing prices of the day before, or live prices in case of the US, or slightly delayed prices anywhere else, or in other countries and so forth. And that is the single most important piece of data we need. So we need, the closing price at whatever date the user purchase something. If an institution is connected, the transaction prices come from the institution, not from EOD. But if I add the instrument manually and I say to Exirio, I bought 10 shares of Apple on the 15th of April 2015, now we produce a valuation of that transaction based on EOD closing prices for that day. Well, Apple closing prices for that day provided to us by EOD. Now, that does not mean that you trade it at the closing price, but that's a reference point. If you don't want to add your price because you maybe don't have it, don't remember it, can't be asked because it's going to be, from an IRR point of view, it's not going to matter enormously. If you go at 5 p.m., maybe slightly different from the closing price, but it's not going to be huge. But then obviously for today, obviously the valuation I provide to you with is the valuation as of today, is the metrics as of today. So the single most important element we depend on is yesterday's closing prices. And then the accuracy of the split information, because obviously if any split data is wrong, everything goes exponentially wrong because the price or the quantity is not adjusted, which means you may have a position that was worth $50,000 that now is worth 5 million. And in our structure, everything is inherited upwards. So all of a sudden, your entire wealth doesn't make sense because there's this wrong pocket of 5 million that is not 5 million. And all your metrics are affected. Everything is wrong. We're working on a way to isolate any update, but there's always a fight between what's good UX and easy interaction and what gets overly complicated for an average user. But obviously, we've got this problem that an error at the minimum level is brought up at different stages. So that's the single most important thing. Then we do provide additional information which are available through you, which are available as a bonus, but it's stuff I can Google. It's not stuff I require to calculate metrics. For example, the balance sheets or we do use geography and industry and sector in order to calculate exposures. But again, that's not something that changes. I mean, Apple, whether if you get the wrong closing price from yesterday, well, that does not make it a fast food company. So exposure and geography remain the same. I think that is the single most important thing. I know that there are additional services that exist that are additional degree of information. Somebody showed me a competitor of yours offering, I don't remember the company, and it was pretty amazing what they were going to, and I didn't check whether you offered that or not. I was just curious how much it was. I can pay 10 people in an office in Geneva and they can do everything I want them to do. The point is, how much does this all cost, right? So yeah, what they were offering was great. It was about 5 times what we pay you for. Good thing to have, certainly not like a crucial feature that is a life or death thing. And I mean, we remain a startup, so we're very cost conscious. I'm not sure I've answered the question, but the most important feature is the accuracy and coverage. The fact that there's an IPO and you have a stock ready the moment in which it starts trading, that's crucial, especially because IPOs attract most interests. It's a lot easier to have investors jump into an IPO that buys some gray share that has fallen out of love, that has been trading for 20 years. IPOs, just especially in some markets, get a lot of excitement and they go up by 10-20% within the first few weeks. So there's a lot of interest. So that is a crucial feature. If you get the trailing dividend yield wrong, of course it matters because it shouldn't be wrong, but it only affects that position. It does not affect the portfolio. It does not affect the entire account of the client. It's really the prices. And to be honest, we've had some issues with splits, but not your issues. It's like it was not clear what was going on for the first couple of days. But other than that, I'm not aware of any issue of that kind.
Sounds good. Also, you said that it was an overnight success in Romania and you had to find a provider pretty quick. So how was your experience with implementing EODHD to set this all up and get it going? Because you already had clients waiting for this.
Well, again, we need to split for two phases. So we've been completely free for a long time. For a long time, we were not even incorporated. So when we were not a commercial enterprise, we used Yahoo Finance prices, which can be used freely, provided you don't make money with them. You cannot. I'm not quite sure whether it's, it was still not a company, so it was David's personal usage for his own app that did not charge any money. I think for some period with EOD, it was the same, and then we switched to whatever it was, a year and a half or so ago, 2 years ago, I don't remember exactly. We switched to the current, to the corporate setup or startup package. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Again, the development, you lose me on that because I'm neither the CTO nor very much valuable in that space. So I generally don't intervene much, but yeah, I don't recall any issue whatsoever.
Thank you for this overview. What you're going through this with your company. It was I guess this was very insightful for our viewers who will see this interview. Thank you for that.
One thing I would like to add, since you didn't ask me, but it's something that is certainly beneficial to any startup and something that is characterized my interaction with you guys, especially with Natali. You guys don't work in a startup. I don't think it's up. You guys are not a startup. You're properly funded. And, when you're not properly funded, in which is your early days and it's your money that you put into all this, every dollar counts. And I mean every dollar. So there's an enormous amount of people, companies out there that profess to be supportive of the startup environment they find. But then when it comes to payment structure, flexibility, and all that goes with it, there's a business, so either you can pay and you take it, or you can't pay and you don't have it. Which, from a commercial standpoint, I understand it. But again, from a startup point of view, the biggest lesson I think I've learned is that every dollar truly matters. And I don't mean every $10, every dollar. And you guys have been very understanding when that was needed. And, I can't say the same about many others. So that really matters for anyone starting a company, having someone that you can work with that can understand that, you're a startup and it's a tech startup. By definition, your marginal profitability is minimal. You need massive explosion of users. So there's a phase where you're just burning cash. And one of the biggest traps of startups is, they may well have all the chances, all the characteristics to become successful, but guess what? They run out of cash before they get there. So no one will ever know. If you can hold on to your survival until you break even, or you keep getting funded and so forth, that's how you can make it. And if you've got partners along the way that understand that and do what they can to support you, that's crucial.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's very hard for startups, especially in the field of finance, because data is such a highly licensed field. And there are many big companies that are providing the data, but it's extremely expensive. But at the same time, you kind of need to have a pretty accurate data to serve your users correctly and not lose the reputation. So we try to kind of be in between to serve the same level of accuracy, but also provide flexibility. So yeah, it's kind of a new wave of the financial data providers. And thank you for noticing that. This is actually, very good to hear and learn for us as well.
Well, I hope I've been helpful.
Yeah, I think it was amazing. You have a great story and I feel like every other startup founder, even when they're just starting on their laptop, they want to see that success is possible. And it's always good that someone can share their insights on how they've been going through that way. And I think we have learned a lot of lessons today, like follow user feedback or be responsive to your users so that they get impressed and do word of mouth marketing for you. And also having worldwide user base. The other one was, I think, from what I remember, is that you can follow your own experience to create a product that people actually need, and then you kind of let the market lead you. So I think that was pretty cool. So thank you so much for sharing this and for your time. And that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.